Good morning everyone. Magbabasa na tayo ng Bible guys, pero nasira yung salamin ko. Natanggal yung pinakasalamin. Yan, napasukat na lang tayo ulit sa mata. Basa na tayo ng Bible. Tiyagaan lang. Tiyagaan muna natin kahit malabo-malabo na. 1 Kings chapter 6 and 7 and Luke chapter 20 verse 27 to 47. Chapter 20 verse 27 to 47 ng Luke. So dito muna tayo sa 1 Kings chapter 6 and 7. Ang 29 na natin ng April guys. April 29, 2020. Basa. Solomon builds the temple. In the 488th year. So 480. Kaumpisa lang may math agad tayo. In the 488th year, after the Israelites had come out of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Zib, the 2nd month, he began to build the temple of the Lord. Wait lang guys. Sa verse 2. Umpisa pa lang, pumipiyok na tayo. Nakakainis naman. The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long. Ayan na naman tayo sa sukatan. Parang si Moses lang nung araw. The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 wide, and 30 high. The portico at the front of the main hall of the temple extended the width of the temple, that is 20 cubits, and projected 10 cubits from the front of the temple. He made narrow, clerestory windows. Dito ako tinatamad dati, yung ginagawa rin nila Moses na house of God. Kasi may mga sukat-sukat ba? Against the walls of the main hall and inner sanctuary, he built a structure around the building in which there were side rooms. The lowest floor was 5 cubits wide, the middle floor 6 cubits, and the third floor 7. He made of set wedges around the outside of the temple so that nothing would be inserted into the temple walls. Sabi sa akin dati, wag daw ako gumamit ng salamin na yung hindi sukat sa mata. Ang problema, hindi pa tayo makakapaggawa ngayon. Kaya tis-tis muna tayo guys. Sa verse 7. In building the temple, only blocks dressed at the quarter were used, and no hammer, chisel, or any other iron tool was heard at the temple site while it was being built. The entrance of the lowest floor was on the south side of the temple. A stairway led up to the middle level, and from there to the third. So he built the temple and completed it, roofing it with beams and cedar. planks. And he built the side rooms all along the temple. The height of it was 5 cubits, and they were attached to the temple by beams of cedar. Intindihin ko pa ba to? Basta pag nakakita ako ng church, yun na yun. Mga sukat-sukat ba? The word of the Lord came to Solomon. Reaction ko lang yun ah. The word of the Lord came to Solomon, as for this temple you are building, if you follow my decrees, carry out my regulations, and keep all my commands and obey them, I will fulfill through you the promise. I will fulfill through you the promise I gave to David, your father, and I will live among the Israelites and will not abandon my people Israel. So Solomon built the temple and completed it. He lined its interior walls with cedar boards, paneling them from the floor of the temple to the ceiling, and covered the floor of the temple with planks of pine. He partitioned of 20 cubits at the rear of the temple with cedar boards from floor to ceiling to form within the temple an inner sanctuary, the most holy place. The main hall in front of this room was 40 cubits long. The inside of the temple was cedar, carved with cards and open flowers. Everything was cedar, no stone was to be seen. He prepared the inner sanctuary within the temple to set the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord there. The inner sanctuary was 20 cubits long, 20 wide, and 20 high. He overlaid the inside with pure gold and also overlaid the altar of cedar. Solomon covered the inside of the temple with pure gold. Noong araw guys, no? Sagana yung ano nila sa mga gold. And he extended gold chains across the front of the inner sanctuary, which was overlaid with gold. So he overlaid the whole interior with gold. He also overlaid with gold the altar that belonged to the inner sanctuary. In the inner sanctuary, he made a pair of cherubim. Oh, hindi nawawala yung cherubim, guys. Of olive wood. It's 10 cubits high. One wing of the first cherub was 5 cubits long, and the other wing 5 cubits, 10 cubits from wing tip to wing tip. Oh. Wing tip to wing tip. Verse 25. The second cherub also measured 10 cubits, for the two cherubim were identical in size and shape. The height of each cherub was 10 cubits. He placed the cherubim inside the innermost room of the temple, with their wings spread out. The wing of one cherub touched one wall, while the wing of the other touched the other wall, and their wings touched each other in the middle of the room. He overlaid the cherubim with gold. On the walls around the temple in both the inner and outer rooms, he carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers. He also covered the floors of both the inner and outer rooms of the temple with gold. For the entrance of the inner sanctuary, he made doors of olive wood with 5-sided jambs, and on the two olive wood doors he carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, and overlaid the cherubim and palm trees with beaten gold. In the same way, he made 4-sided jambs of olive wood for the entrance to the main hall. He also made 2 pine doors, each having 2 leaves that turned in sockets. He carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers on them, and overlaid them with gold hammered evenly over the carvings. And he built the inner courtyard of 3 courses of dressed stone and 1 course of trimmed cedar beams. The foundation of the temple of the Lord was laid in the 4th year, in the month of Zib. Anong Zib? Z-I-V. In the month of Zib. Hanapin natin sa Google. Alam guys, ang ganda ngayon ng mga cellphone ko. Google. Hanapin natin si Ziv. Ba't ganun? Sa ibang ano? Ba't ganun? Taiwanese pro-gamer ang nakalagay. Ziv is a company. What's the meaning of Ziv? Radiance, brilliance, or light of God. Nakalagay guys sa pag tinanong daw what is the meaning of Ziv. It is of Hebrew origin. Nakalagay kasi Ziv as a boy's name, also used as a girl's name, Ziv, is pronounced Ziv. It is of Hebrew origin, and the meaning of Ziv is radiance, brilliance, or light of God. So, brilliance or light of God ang meaning siya. Hebrew origin. So, ibig sabihin ng Ziv is brilliance. Ano nga ulit? Kababasa lang. Talaga lang. Ziv is radiance, brilliance. Radiance, brilliance, or light of God. So, sa verse 37 guys, the foundation of the temple of the Lord was laid in the 4th year in the month of Ziv. So, light of God. Anong month kaya yun? Sa panahon natin ngayon na. Kasi meron lang tayong 12 months, diba? So, anong buwan kaya sa generation natin yan? In the 11th year, in the month of Bol. Ayan na naman. Ayoko na. Pampatagal lang maghanap sa ano. Sa Google. Buti na lang si Google kompleto. Wala. Wala eh. Yan mo na. Huwag natin intindihin to. Bol, the 8th month of Bol, the 8th month, the temple was finished in all its details according to its specification. Iba kasi nakalagay sa Google ah. So, wala. 8th month, the temple was finished all its details according to its specification. He had spent 7 years building it. Yun, ganun katagal gumawa ng temple guys. 7 years inabot. Solomon built his palace. It took Solomon 13 years. However, to complete the construction of his palace, he built 13 years. He built the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Oh. Nandun pa kaya ito ngayon? Ito guys, oh. It took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. He built the palace of the forest of Lebanon, 100 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high, with 4 rows of cedar columns supporting trimmed cedar beams. It was roofed with cedar above the beams that rested on the columns, 45 beams, 15 to a row. Its windows are placed high in sets of three facing each other. All the doorways had rectangular frames. They were in the front part in sets of three facing each other. He made a colonnade 50 cubits long and 30 wide. In front of it was a portico, and in front of that were pillars and an overhanging roof. He built the throne hall, the hall of justice, where he was to judge, and he covered it with cedar from floor to ceiling. And the palace in which he was to live, set farther back, was similar in design. Solomon also made a palace like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had married. Oh, napangasawa ng King Solomon is yung daughter din ni King Pharaoh. All these structures from the outside to the great courtyard and from foundation nothing. Asawa ni Solomon is the daughter of Pharaoh. Wife of Solomon. All these structures from the outside to the great courtyard and from foundation to eaves were made of blocks, high-grade stone cut to size and trimmed with so on their inner and outer faces. The foundations were laid with large stones of good quality, some measuring 10 cubits and some 8. So, mayroong 10, mayroong 8. Some measuring 10 cubits and some 8. Above were high-grade stones cut to size and cedar beams. The great courtyard was surrounded by a wall of 3 courses of dressed stone and 1 course of trimmed cedar beams, as was the inner courtyard of the temple of the Lord with its portico. Galing naman ni King Solomon. Nakagawa na ng temple, gumagawa pa ng palace. The temple's furnishings, King Solomon sent to Tyre and brought Huram. What is Huram ulit? Ang dami natin hindi maintindihan sa Bible. Mga palibhasa ngayon lang tayo. Sultan name, real name. Huram, Hiram. Dito tayo. I was a Phoenician king of Tyre according to the Hebrew Bible. Oh, born in Lebanon. Ang Huram here is Huram. Dito naman is Hi. Sa Bible kasi guys, ang spelling ng Huram is Huram, pero dito Hiram. Hiram I was the Phoenician king of Tyre according to the Hebrew Bible. His regnal years have been calculated by some as 980 to 947 BC in succession to his father Abibal. So, galing sa Wikipedia. Yan ang meaning niya. So, dito na tayo. King Solomon sent to Tyre and brought Huram, whose mother was a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and whose father was a man of Tyre and craftsman in bronze. Huram was highly skilled and experienced in all kinds of bronze work. magets to. Bahala na kayo magbasa guys. Whose mother was a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and whose father was a man of Tyre and craftsman in bronze. Huram was highly skilled and experienced in all kinds of bronze work. He came to King Solomon and did all the work assigned to him. So, yun siya. Phoenician si Huram dito sa ano. Is Hiram I was the Phoenician king of Tyre. So, lagyan natin Hiram I. He came to King Solomon and did all the work assigned to him. He cast the bronze pillars, each 18 cubits high and 12 cubits around, by line. He also made 2 capitals of cast bronze to sit on the tops of the pillars. Each capital was 5 cubits high, and it worked in interwoven chains with. Hindi ko alam guys kung yun ang meaning ha, kasi magkaiba sila ng spelling eh. Pag tinype mo yung, ayun o, Hiram, Huram, Jewish King of Tyre. Parang inano niya, Hiram, tapos Huram, King of Tyre in the time of David and Solomon. And David has conquered Jerusalem. Hiram sent him cedar wood and carpenters. So yun, pareho rin yata. Hiram or Huram. Siyempre maniwala tayo dyan. Google yan eh. A network of interwoven chains. So verse 17 guys. A network of interwoven chains based on the capitals on top of the pillar 7 for its capital. He made pomegranates into rows encircling its network to decorate the capitals on top of the pillars. He did the same for its. Hanggang dito lang tayo sa 7 ha. 6 and 7 lang tayo. Huwag tayo lumagpas at tayo hirap na yung mata natin. He made pomegranates into rows encircling its network to decorate the capitals on top of the pillars. He did the same for its capital, the work of to decorate. He did the same for its capital. The capitals on top of the pillars in the portico were in the shape of lilies, 4 cubits high. On the capitals of both pillars above the ball-shaped part next to the network were the 200 pomegranates in rows all around. He erected the pillars at the portico of the temple, the pillar of the south, the pillar to the south he named Jachin, and the one to the north Boaz. The capitals on top were in the shape of lilies, and so the work on the pillars was completed. He made a sea of cast metal, circular in shape, measuring 10 cubits from rim to rim and 5 cubits high. It took a line of 30 cubits to measure around it. Below the rim, guards encircled it, 10 to a cubit. The guards were cast in 2 rows in one piece with the sea. The sea stood on 12 balls, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The sea rested on top of them, and their hindquarters were toward the center. It was a hand breadth in thickness, and its rim was like the rim of a cup. Bilis na guys. The head side bounce that's sa verse, sa verse 28. This is how they stand. This is, ulitin nga natin sa verse 27. He also made 10 movable stands. Na ano na yung mata ko eh. 200 thickness. Sa verse 26 kasi guys to, it was at handbreadth in thickness and its rim was like the rim of a cup. Like a lily blossom, it held 2,000 beds. He also made 10 movable stands of bronze. It was 4 cubits long, 4 wide, and 3 high. This is how the stands were made. They had side panels attached to uprights. On the panels between the upright were lions, bulls, and cherubim, and on the upright as well. Above and below the lions and bulls were wreaths of hammered work. Its stand had 4 bronze walls with bronze axles, and it had a basin resting on 4 supports cast with wreaths on its side. On the inside of sorry On the inside of the stand there was, verse 31. On the inside of the stand there was an opening that had a circular frame 1 cubit deep. This opening was round and with its base work. It measured a cubit and a half. Around its opening there was engraving. The panels of the stands were square, not round. The 4 walls, so square siya. Huwag mo nang dugtungan ng not round. Square na nga eh. The panels of the stand were square, not round. The 4 walls were under the panels and the axles of the walls were attached to the stand. The diameter of its wall was hindi kasi guys yung pag-describe ba niya nakalagay siya the panels of the stand were square. So understand na natin na square yun. Pero dinugtungan pa niya ng not round. Eh, yun ang sulat. The 4 walls were under the panels and the axles of the wheels were attached to the stand. The diameter of its wall was a cubit and a half. The walls were made like chariot wheels. The axles, rims, spokes, and hubs were all of cast metal. Its stand had 4 handles, one on each corner projecting from the stand. At the top of the stand there was a circular band half a cubit deep. The supports and panels were attached to the top of the stand. He engraved cherubim, lions, and palm trees on the surfaces of the supports and on the panels in every available space with wreaths. Ang bagal ko magbasa, oy. With wreaths all around. This is the way he made the 10 stands. They were all cast in the same molds and were identical in size and shape. He then made 10 bronze basins, each holding 40 bats, and measuring 4 cubits across, 1 basin to go on each of the 10 stands. He placed 5 of the stands on the south side of the temple and 5 on the north. He placed the sea on the south side of the southeast corner of the temple. He also made the basins and shovels and sprinkling bowls. So Hiram finished all the work he had undertaken for King Solomon in the temple of the Lord. The 2 pillars, the 2 ball-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 2 sets of Sabi ko sa inyo, bagal pa magbasa. Naurasan na naman tayo. Bilis na. Mag-work na tayo. The 400 ulit sa 41. The 2 pillars, the 2 ball-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 2 sets of network decorating the 2 ball-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 400 pomegranates for the 2 sets of network, 2 rows of pomegranates for its network decorating the ball-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 10 stands with their 10 basins, the sea and the 12 balls under it, the pots, shovels, and sprinkling bowls. All these objects that Hiram made for King Solomon for the temple of the Lord were of burnished bronze. Bronze pa yan, guys. They had them cast in clay molds in the plain of the Jordan between Succoth and Zarethan. Solomon left all these things unweighed because there were so many. The weight of the bronze was not determined. Sabi ko sa inyo guys, mayayaman talaga sila nung araw. Sa gold, sa bronze, kung ano-ano pa. Ngayon, yung panahon natin ngayon, puro na lang tayo paggawa ng semento na lang. Wala na tayong gold dyan. Wala yung nakikita natin sa mga temple natin ngayon, di ba? Solomon also made all the furnishings that were in the Lord's temple, the golden altar, the golden table on which was the bread of the presence, the lampstands of pure gold, 5 on the right and 5 on the left, in front of the inner sanctuary, the gold floral work and lamps and tongues. The pure gold basins, wick trimmers, sprinkling bowls, dishes, and censers, and the gold sockets for the door of the innermost room, the most high place, and also for the doors of the main hall of the temple. When all the work King Solomon had done for the temple of the Lord was finished, the broth and the things in Fathers David had dedicated, the silver and gold and the furnishings, and he placed them in the treasuries of the Lord's temple. So, hindi ko gano'ng iniintindi guys, kasi hindi naman tayo magpapagawa ng temple. Yan, dito na tayo sa Luke. Chapter 20, verse 27 to verse 20, 27 to 47. Bilis na, oy. 27. Luke 20, verse 27 to 47. April 29. Siningit ko na lang. Wala na, puno na yung kung ano sulat nilagay ko. Sabi ko sa inyo, hindi na itong pakinabangan ng susunod na babase. 67. Basa. Religious leaders question Jesus about the resurrection. Nabasa na ulit natin to. Some of the Sadducees who say there is no resurrection came to Jesus with a question. Teacher, sabi ko sa inyo, ang tawag kay Jesus nung araw kundi teacher of the law. Teacher, they said, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, nabasa na nga natin ito. Yung walang katapusang byuda. Ang malas naman ng mga napapakasal, lagi na mamatay. Nakalagay, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies and leaves a wife but no children, the man must marry the widow and have children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first one married a woman and died childless. The second and the third married her, and in the same way the 7 died, leaving no children. Kita ko guys, ang malas. Hanggang 7 asawa. Hindi nagkaanak na namatay, pero wala pa rin silang anak. Finally, the woman died too. Now then at the resurrection, whose wife will she be, since the 7 were married to her? Tsaka kayo ba naman guys, kayong magkakapatid, halimbawa na biyuda na yung asawa ng kapatid nyo, aasawahin nyo rin ba? Sa generation natin ngayon ha? Siyempre hindi. Jesus replied, the people of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy of taking part in that age and in the resurrection from the dead will neither marry nor be given in marriage, and they can no longer die, for they are like the angels. They are God's children, since they are children of the resurrection, but in the account of the bush. Even Moses showed that they did rise, for he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Si Jacob, guys, is Israel yan, ha? So, pwede mong sabihin na the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Israel. Kasi si Jacob, Israel po din yan. He is not the God of the dead, but some. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for to him all are alive. Some of the teachers of the law responded, "Well said, teacher," and no one dared to ask him any more questions. So yun, walang nagmamayari doon sa babae. Religious, wala. Pagdating doon sa, ano ba nakalagay? Pag na-resurrection na ba sila? So, ibig sabihin, wala nang, hindi na siya asawa ng pitong asawa, pitong lalaki. Yun. Diba? Are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy to taking part of the age and in the resurrection from the dead, sa verse 35, guys, will neither marry nor be given in marriage. So yun, pag na-resurrection na tayo, hindi na tayo mag-aasawa doon sa kabilang natin. Pag namatay tayo, tapos nabuhay tayo muli, hindi na tayo mag-aasawa. Yun ang nakalagay dito. Binasa ko lang. Religious leaders cannot answer Jesus' question. Nabasa na rin sa Matthew. Then Jesus said to them, "How is that they say that Christ is the son of David? Christ thou is the son of David. David himself declares in the book of Psalms, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet.' David calls him Lord. How then can be his son?" Si Jesus ba tsaka si David magkasabay? How is that they say the Christ is the son of David? Ang alam ko lang na anak ni David ay si Absalom, yung rebelding anak. Yun lang ang natatandaan ko niyang anak. Kasi yun, rebelde yun. Mas madaling tandaan. So, yun ang alam kong anak niya. Nakalagay dito sa 41, guys. Then Jesus said to them, "How is that they say the Christ is the son of David? David himself declares in the book of Psalms, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet.' David calls him Lord. How then can he be his son?" Jesus warns against the religious leaders. Sino nga yung anak ni David na inano niya? Kasi nung araw, kasi yung mga sila nag-aagawan sa throne sa pagiging king. Yung dalawa niyang anak. May isa pa siya bago si Solomon, diba? Si Solomon, anak yata yun ni Bathsheba eh. Kita mo, kababasa lang natin kahapon para I forgot na kaagad. David calls him Lord. How then he can be his son? Jesus warns against the religious leaders. While all the people were listening, Jesus said to his disciples, "Beware of the teaching of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and love to be greeted in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor and banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. Such men will be punished most severely. So hanggang dito na tayo. Bye everyone. God bless.